Hey, happy Halloween, everybody, and welcome to the Week 9 edition of K-Bell Game Day right here on Idabel's first 96.7 KBEL. Wow, we're actually a little earlier than I thought. Am I looking at this right? No, I'll take that back. That clock is off. Apologies for being late, but hey, this is Cornelius Neal. We got Coach Kincaid here in the building. And first question comes to us from Aaron. Said, ask Kincaid how it feels to clinch a postseason spot for you and your staff, especially in your first year as head coach and with 2 games to go in the regular season and having already clinched. Have you started looking ahead to your playoff opponent?
Yeah, first off, it feels good. It's a credit to what these coaches have been able to do with these kids, and then really a whole bunch of credit goes to those kids, man. I mean, I'm super excited and happy for them that they've been able to buy in and trust the process, and just trust us as coaches to be able to help guide them and lead them. And it's been fun watching those kids grow week in and week out every week. So it's a great feeling to be able to clinch it, but that's not just making the playoffs. It was a goal, but that's not the end goal, obviously, for us. We want to just be the best team that we can be week in and week out. But it feels good. What was that last part of that question? I forgot that. Yeah. Looking ahead. Yeah,
looking ahead.
We've looked ahead a little bit. We won't know for sure until Week 10 wraps up in the Northeast District up there. There's still a chance for us to finish second. If we come out next week and beat Lincoln at home, we'll be able to clinch second place in the district if we're with the win. If it's a L, then we'll stay at third with the win tonight anyway, for sure. I'm pretty sure we'll pretty much stay third regardless of what happens. Checotah have to beat Eufaula next week for us to have to drop to fourth if they were to beat us tonight. But looking ahead at opponents, though, Inola right now sitting at the 2 seed over there. But if Berry Hill beats Cash in Week 10, then we'll get Berry Hill at Berry Hill if we were to finish third in the district.
Yeah, there's still a lot of ball left to be played, and we'll definitely be keeping our eye out on that. We'll talk about that during the halftime segment, and then go over everything tomorrow morning during the Saturday morning coaches show, because that's something fans want to know. Just know, hey, get your if you got PTO for a couple of Fridays from now, be sure and schedule that off, and make sure you have gas money to get in the game. Maybe if you use that Pike Pass, because it seems like we're going to be headed up the Turnpike towards Tulsa in some form or another. So, save every little bit of coin that you can. So, going back to last week, that win over Eufaula, it's extra satisfying to beat them. I don't care if it's here or, at Eufaula in Alaska. It doesn't matter. It's always a great thing to beat them. And defense made Peter Lee tap out third, fourth quarter, because I know he took some nice shots on defense. Macaulay Dixon hit him a couple of times, and you look up, they're trying to get the ball elsewhere. And Betty, shout out to Betty, had one of the best catches I've seen in a while at the high school level. Surprised y'all haven't. Have y'all thought about trying to put that on a highlight reel somewhere? Because I've had some folks ask about that. And then the next question, kind of leads into this week. What has the move been like this week, heading into this week's game against Checotah?
It's been the same thing. The way our defense played in the second half the other night, man, it was spectacular, man. And so we're trying to keep that going for 4 quarters and play 4 quarters of really tough defense. If they don't score, we'll find a way to put 7 on the board somehow. But this week's practice, man, those kids have attacked the week so far so good, man. And I'm really excited about the way that they've attacked it. We always talk about attacking what's on the schedule, regardless of what it is. Yep. They attack the conditioning. It's a whole different mindset of team with the team right now. They're hungry to continue to win, and that's a good feeling to have. Because we talked about in the coach's office. We could be saying, hey, we got 2 more games and we're packing it up and, we're putting everything up. But, fortunate for us, we're able to extend our season just a little bit longer. But, that's for a couple weeks out. We're worried about right now tonight going to Checotah on Halloween. So.
Yeah, definitely could be spooky times one way or another in Checotah tonight. And we'll have that broadcast and looked at them on film. It seems like they are really dedicated to running that ball, especially between your quarterback Cole Rowland and the running back Jaden Ellen. They lined up. I watched their game against Holland Hall at Checotah because I thought that would be the best representation. They lined up in some big sets. They had double tight end. They lined up big lineman as fullback, so they definitely want to run the ball. And then they don't mind throwing it, but, you got a 6'2", 240-pound guy lined up at slot. He comes in to block on a linebacker. That's definitely showing dedication to trying to run that ball. And, that makes for a faster game. Clock keeps moving and, lessens your chance of turnovers. What have you seen from them on film?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, they are a run-heavy team for the most part. Their quarterback does sling it a little bit. He can throw it a little bit. He's a good quarterback. He runs tough. He's not the most athletic guy. I mentioned that he's similar to, he's the less physical Waylon, from a few years back for us, but he can throw the ball really well. Now the people he's throwing to are, not the best. He doesn't have the best weapons on the outside, but, that two-headed monster of Cole Rowland and Jaden Ellen is special. That running back right there, real similar to Peter Lee at Eufaula, a little bit shorter, stockier, so, going to have to really, really wrap him up. He won't go down as easy. Not saying Peter went down easy by any means, but, he's a little taller, so it's easy to knock him over a little bit if you get him unbalanced. This kid's low to the ground and center of gravity is right there, so we got to wrap him up and make sure we're driving our feet because he doesn't stop running his.
Any possibilities of loading box 4, maybe 5 men in front, especially on running downs, or?
Yeah, we'll get into some stuff. If they got their I formation, we'll tighten the D-line down and walk our safeties up on the line of scrimmage and keep our backers in the box to read all the trash out and go make the tackles. That's basically what we ask our backers to do in this. We ask our D-linemen to eat up blocks and our linebackers to be able to, be free and make tackles. And, we've really seen, our D-line do a really great job of eating up blocks, and it's even allowed our safeties to come in the mix and tackle a lot. Our linebackers have made some plays. Our defense is really flying around as a whole right now. So as long as we're getting 2 or 3 hats to the ball and then getting the rest of the 11 there after the fact, but, point of contact, we want to make sure 2 or 3 guys are there, especially tonight versus this really tough running back.
Absolutely. Load up that box, and it's definitely going to be a lot of run game from them. And that running back, I thought of Peter Lee looking at him as well. Like they're nearly similar in size and everything like that. But like you said, a little tougher to bring down. But we brought Peter Lee down last week, and I know our guys will be up for the challenge. And we talked about the quarterback running the ball, and seems like we've seen that quite a bit throughout all district play. Stigler's quarterback ran the ball. Of course, you had Tegan Collins from Muldrow. He was a little hobble, but he ran the ball some. So that's been a theme throughout district play. Quarterbacks that don't mind putting their head down and getting those yards on the ground. And ours, McCall Dixon, same thing. So it'll definitely be interesting to watch tonight. Now, defensively, they line up in the 4-man front. Looks like they start out in a 4-3. It looks like that outside linebacker will sometimes come to the line and try and crash in. What have you seen from them defensively?
Yeah, I mean, looks like a 4-3. I think it's kind of like a 3-4, and they're just walking the weak side backer up and then Apex and the other guy out to the side. It'll be interesting to see how they play us tonight. I've been watching the Muldrow film because, we're really athletic just like Muldrow, so kind of trying to find some similarities there. Watched a lot of the Holland game just to figure out how that game ended up how it did. But, Checotah's not a bad team by any means. They run a lot of cover 2 man. They'll man up everybody underneath and keep 2 safeties high. But, if you're going to play linebacker on Jordan Lewis, you're in for a long night. So, hopefully we can take advantage of some things. Their quarterback's their linebacker, one of their middle linebackers. He's a tough kid, but, we're going to run at him and make him maybe have to put that throwing shoulder in the mix or put that helmet in there and make some plays and, see just how bad he wants to tackle or if he really just wants to get over this offensive side of the ball and play quarterback.
Right. Make him work on both sides of the ball. I'm all for that. And, the running game has been, really great these last 3 weeks with Quincy and Jay Sean. And but actually, these last few weeks, even dating back to the Mojo game, definitely been able to get it done on the ground. And then there have been times that you put up 250, 225 as the team running the ball. So definitely looking forward to seeing that tonight. And then lining up a linebacker on Jordan or on Benny, there's going to be some opportunities to get that ball down the field and hit the big pass. And then, there's always a possibility of finding Titus, the middle of the field at tight end. And then, I like that y'all brought him in as a closer at running back at Mojo. That was a nice touch. And I know we haven't seen it since then, but, you won't, like he mentioned, weeks back, you want to win 5 in a row. This week will get you that 5th win in a row. So, got to throw everything out there and see what happens. With this, like you mentioned, like at the top of the broadcast, win this game, we clinched 3rd.
Yep.
And didn't let Checotah and Eufaula battle it out for 4th. And even the winner of the Mojo Stigler game has a chance of sneaking in there if they win tonight. And then they win that Week 10 game. We'll get to that here in a moment.
Yeah,
how's that work?
It'll be tough, though. With Stigler losing to Locust last week, I think Stigler's out of contention for it. If Stigler were to knock off Mojo tonight, though, Mojo would be out of contention for it. So then it would just be a Checotah Eufaula for 4th place next week. But if Mojo were to win tonight and win Week 10 and they go ahead and win out, and Checotah were to lose to Eufaula, Mojo and Eufaula would have the same district record, and Mojo has the head-to-head with them, so Mojo would actually get that 4th spot. So I think it's down to 3 teams now for that last spot, if we were to handle business. The good thing is, if we were not to handle business, we have a head-to-head over everybody else except for Checotah. So, which is a good thing for us. So,
right. So, fact of the matter is we're in one way or another. So, next question: have you talked to the team about playing through adversity in the form of a timely flag getting thrown when we hit a big play, or oops, we get a stop on 3rd down? Here comes the flag. It seems like some odd stuff happens whenever we go to Checotah. I recall my last trip up there was when Coach Parker was here, and we had a pretty good team, and Parker nearly got thrown out the game. He got into it with the ref, and I seen multiple flags fly up. So it's always you got to play that next play, get that 1st down, get that stop. So have you had a chance to speak with the team on that?
Yes, sir. We actually rep that throughout the week. We'll be playing, and we'll start moving the ball on Scout O and versus the team 1st defense, 2nd defense, and we'll be moving the ball, and then we'll say, hey, we got to stop on 3rd down, but there's a penalty flag. And so we'll walk it up and make them move. And the same thing offensively. We moved them back 15, 10 yards just for little things like that, just to get them prepared mentally and see how they would react. See if you're going to start pointing and jarring at your brother, or if you're just going to be like, hey, come on, let's fix it and move on to the next play and let's keep going. And thankfully, for the most part, it was, hey, we're moving on to the next play. Let's keep playing. It is what it is. We'll get a stop or we'll get the next 1st down. And also shout out to Coach Parker, man. He's been a big mentor to me. I've been talking to him quite a bit, and it feels good to be able to talk to him and get that guidance from him a little bit.
Absolutely, and it's real great of y'all to think ahead of those situations. I know some teams don't think that far ahead. So, with that being said, this is our last regular season road trip. Warrior Nation, get your gas money, get your Pike passes ready, because we'll be hitting the road again, like I mentioned, in a couple of weeks. But focusing on tonight, I mentioned this already, talking about winning 5 in a row. A win tonight will accomplish that mission. Do you have any words for Warrior Nation?
Yeah, come out and support these kids, man. Support these boys. These young men have worked their butts off, and they deserve to hear your support and hear you cheering in the crowd. I understand it's a long road trip, but with us being in 3A and looking like we'll be in 3A again, we're always gonna have long road trips. So it is what it is with that scenario, and so if you're Warrior through and through, come on out and support if you're able to. If not, hopefully we can find a stream for you. It is Checotah senior night, so they'll start stuff about 6:30 on the field. But we're excited for the opportunity to go out and compete, and we hope you guys can be there to cheer us on.
All right, hey, can we keep you here for a little bit? We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll get into these district games because I know there's some implications. I think our game will be the most interesting one of the week, but there's some other implications. So we're going to come right back. Welcome back to KBL Game Day right here on Idabel's first 96.7 KBEL. We still got Coach Kincaid here in the studio. We're going to go over these district games and we'll get him out of here. So as we mentioned before, Muldrow at Stigler. Bulldogs can sneak back into the discussion for fourth place with a win, but some magical stuff has happened on that field in Stigler. So that really is a toss-up. Stigler plays really well at home. So anything can happen in that one. That's going to be a really interesting contest. I'm pretty sure it's going to be senior night in Stigler. So any thoughts on that contest?
Yeah, I mean, that was, before last week, before Stigler dropped the one to Locust, had playoff implications in it. Still does for Muldrow at least. But it'll be interesting to see how Muldrow can go up there and handle a little bit of adversity up there at Stigler and see how Stigler plays it and bounces back from a tough L if they're going to lay down or, stand up and fight.
Right. Have you heard anything on the health of Tegan Collins? Because I know he is what makes Muldrow go on offense.
Yeah, I mean he had been dealing with turf toe, so it's one of those things that can only be fixed with surgery, and so he's kind of going to deal with that for the rest of the season at least, and wait until he gets it fixed.
Right, and then we'll see how that holds up, and then up next we got Locust Grove at Holland Hall. Locust Grove's coming off their first win of the season. Maybe have a little pep in their step coming into Holland Hall, but the Dutch have been rolling in that game's in Tulsa. So I would think Holland Hall comes out and handles business. But who knows? Locust Grove may have a trick or two for them tonight. So any thoughts on that game?
Nah, I think Holland will take that one, but truthfully, I mean, Holland hasn't been playing the greatest. They're winning games, but they haven't been playing the cleanest of football lately. So, hopefully back at home for them, it'll make more sense for them to go ahead and get a dub.
Right, and then finally we got Lincoln Christian at Eufaula. My question will be: will Eufaula play their starters tonight, or will they kind of let Peter Lee and quarterback? Will they let them sit on the sideline and get ready for next week's clash with Checotah next week? Because I know I watched one of their streams and they were talking about Checotah even before talking about us. So I know that's a big game for them. You think they'll keep their starters on the field or maybe take them off?
That's interesting because, Checotah actually rested their starters versus Lincoln Christian the week before they played us. And, it's an interesting tactic. I personally don't believe in it because you give those kids one less game that they get to play, especially those seniors. That's one less game that they get to play. And, looking back on it, in 10, 15, 20 years from now, they can – they could brag about, hey, I played that Lincoln Christian team that was so great. Or, it's just to take away a game from those kids, it's interesting. I understand health factor playing a part in it, but, at least play it and play the game early and see how it's going from there and then make a decision. I don't know if Eufaula do that. I think Eufaula, Coach Noonan, Eufaula over there, I think he's built on toughness, and I think he's going to let Peter Lee run the ball right at him and see if they can make some plays. And, it'll be really interesting to see how that game goes. I don't know if Peter will be able to be the first team to score on them. If Eufaula and Peter Lee will be the first team to break one and go score on Lincoln in the district play. But, it'll be interesting to see if I would expect them to go ahead and play those guys.
Right, and especially that game being in Eufaula there. I would think that they'll play them, and they may get a little extra help, being at home. How things are when we go play at Eufaula. And then real quick, I got the District 3A4 games listed because, we're going to be looking at them. I'm not sure if there are any upsets to happen out of that district tonight, but real quickly, you got Sequoia Claremore at Berry Hill. You got Verdigris at Cassia Hall. You got Cleveland at Veneta. And then Inola at Jay. Do any of those matchups interest you heading into tonight?
Yeah, I mean, Verdigris has had a good season this year. Excuse me. Vertica's had a good season this year. I think that they maybe could go up and shock Cassia Hall, but it'll be tough to do. Cassia Hall's ran through that district fairly easy, earning every district point possible. I just, Cassia's the same team that lost to Holland early in the year.
Yep.
So, being able to see that film and kind of compare and see what we're dealing with that North District up there, it's interesting to see. Jay's not a slouch for Inola either, but I think Inola has too much firepower. But Jay, I want to say they're running slot T or something up there. So if they can hold the ball enough and keep it away from Inola's offense, Inola has a really good quarterback and receiver up there. So if they can keep it away from them, Jay could try to eke one out, and it's at Jay, correct?
Yes, it is at Jay.
So at Jay, it could be a little difficult to go play there, and it'll be interesting to see how that one shakes out also.
All right. Hey, thanks for stopping by. We're going to get you out of here. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll get into the games across the area and the game day info and forecast. So we'll be right back. You're listening to KBEL Game Day right here on Idabel's First 96.7 KBEL.